The call-in edition of Dualistic Unity Raw. I just wanted to say very quickly, I love our Patreon page. I really do. Like, not only is it great because we have all those groups and whatnot, but I'm regularly uploading video. Like, I just uploaded about 6 hours of group discussions to our Patreon page today. And these are group discussions that are really down to earth. Like, these are people in our community that are just like anyone else in society, really just asking questions that are relevant to their life, trying to figure out, okay, I get that, but what about when the rest of the shit comes up? What about when people don't like that? What about when it's hard? And so that's all we're ever looking for, is a way to express, yeah, but what about when it sucks? And have other people go, I hear that. I feel that. I understand that. There's nothing we can do to help you, but we can feel where that's coming from. And that in itself is kind of helpful. Like I said, like, we all have to do it on our own, and nobody can relate to what we're going through, but we can all relate to what that's like, to have nobody be able to relate to what we're going through. Right. And so that's kind of comforting in itself, in that there's no comfort in it, but there is some reality. And so the groups are great for that. But yeah, I just uploaded like 6 hours of group discussions. And these are videos that will never, ever, ever see social media or YouTube or anything like that. These are great discussions that are just totally from within the community itself. And you can jump on there for $5 a month. I just wanted to mention that very quickly. $5 a month, and you can chat with us multiple times a week and access all of these great videos. And I posted an article the other day back from 2006. I don't know if you caught that or not, but I have a lot of those. I have a lot of old articles from when I was just waking up and trying to articulate all of this stuff. And so it's kind of fun to post them and then look back and go, oh, that's interesting, where things have changed, where things haven't. So if you want to read those, you can also check those out on Patreon.
Yeah, it really is a gold mine. That article was awesome, by the way. I read it last night. Resonate with it a lot right now. So yeah, I definitely feel where that was coming from. And it's funny how often we can get caught in that. It's not even caught, 'cause it's like, that's where we've lived almost our entire life, is in that spot of concern about other people, trying to change other people, comparing ourselves to other people, interacting with other people. And it's all our perception of other people. So yeah, if you haven't read that article by Ray, definitely check that one out. But yeah, the group discussions, that's awesome. You got all those on there, because they're such a great time. And it is funny that it's not always that anyone can resonate with what you're going through, but you can resonate with the shared experience of not having anyone who understands exactly what you're going through. And in that, you resonate. And so it's not necessarily always the specific situation, the exact type of person you're going through it with, the exact feelings that you're feeling, but there is some degree of it that someone's going to resonate with. And even just understanding that you're not alone in what you're going through, that you're not alone in the experience that you're having, is very helpful in itself. Like, we can get caught up in thinking like, oh, I'm the only one who's going through this. I'm the only one who's ever been through this. I'm the only one who's having as tough of a time as I am with this. And you're not. Like, you never are. You never are the only one who has ever gone through it. But at the same time, which is, it's funny. Like, it's always that, like, yeah, you're alone, surrounded by yourself. And it's funny, like, even with that, like, statement and spiel I was just going on, like, I've been on that spiel a number of times. And it was, yeah, from the perspective of not being everyone and everything, and recognizing that my perception of other people is just maintained by me. That entire idea of that person, like that, I know we've already talked about it a few times this week, but like, holy shit, there is no objective explanation or way to define anyone or anything. Like, it all comes from your perception, from your perspective. So in that, those perspectives, you are alone in a sense, but recognizing that is actually very freeing, because we make the assumption that Our perspective is everyone's perspective. Our perception is everyone else's perception. And that isn't it, because the perception is not the reality of the thing. It's just based on you trying to find some certainty that doesn't exist, and settling upon that and thinking that it means something at all, whether it's a perception of yourself or a perception of anyone else. There is no objective universal perception. It's all fragments. What's left beyond the perceptions is reality, but it's never your perception, and it never could be.
No, but that's the thing. Then what is it? And that's where the faith comes in. You just have to move forward and understand that you can look forever. And that's in fact what forever is. That's exactly what forever is the act of looking at yourself and all you could ever be. It's the entirety of our, what we would call the universe, or the lifespan of the universe from start to finish, right? But even that's not true, because there are multiple variations, infinite variations. But I wanted to mention very quickly that this is a call-in show. So if you are watching or listening and you would like to join us, do so by just going to dualistiCunity.com/live. There's a very short form that you have to fill in, agreeing that you're going to be on an episode that will be released later for other people to listen to. But aside from that, that's pretty much it. And you can join us for up to 10 minutes. We would love to have you do so, because of course you can ask a question, share a story, air a grievance, perhaps just, I don't know, tell us we're full of shit. That might be fun, just to mix it up a little bit. Perhaps if you're religious or spiritual and you'd like to talk a little bit about that, we'd be happy to do that. We have a new series coming out very shortly. We're still looking for participants. It's called Masters of the Metaphysical, where we will be asking people who are channelers, people who are religiously devout, perhaps, people who believe any number of things. Really, if it's metaphysical and you believe that you are a master of it, we would love to talk to you in that show. We will have a form available at some point. Other than that, just go to the website, dualisticunity.com, and go to the contact section and let us know. We get a few of these, actually. We've had a couple of people contact us this week, so I'm kind of excited to have them on the show.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun segment to explore that, and just, interact with more of me. That's all it is interacting with more of myself, and not even trying to get myself to recognize anything whatsoever, just being it in myself. Because like, as soon as I try and do anything to get them to do anything, they're them and I'm me. And it isn't like it can't be both. It can't be both. So yeah, I mean, fucking A. And by the way, for those who have tuned in, I'm not currently hostage as a prisoner of war. I'm just in a hotel room and the window is super bright and there's not many lights. So I have like my light in front of me and everything else is like pretty dark in this room. So yeah, but I just I'm in West Texas right now. So interesting spot, making sure to handle my drugs. Because I don't think anything's legal here besides booze. So yeah, fingers crossed nothing happens with that.
Yeah, from some anonymous location, and Andrew is just on the lam, trying to avoid detection, and yet somehow he's live streaming. That happened at some point. There was some guy, I think the CIA was after or something, and they ended up catching him because he took a selfie on his Facebook page or something along those lines. It's like, that is awesome. That is just fantastic. We did have somebody in the way. Aha, we do. Hold on, and I'm going to check what they would like to talk to us about. Andrew, you can just fill some space for me for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I got it. And that's all the space I needed.
Cool.
This is Justin, and he would like to talk about the essence of attention and involvement in reality. I'm very curious as to what that means.
Excited for it. Justin.
I will figure out the time for this at some point. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hello, Justin.
Sorry. Oh my God.
Welcome again. Pretty sure we've seen you
Oh, you guys
before.
remember me from the last video?
Oh yeah,
Sorry for my
We
shoes.
do.
of course.
Oh
How you
yeah.
doing?
Let me just sit down. You guys remember me from the video? Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Sorry. Hold on. I have like two phones on, and like one of them is running the podcast and the on my other phone. So yeah.
No
I
worries.
was about. Yeah. Hold on. Let me turn the volume up. I can barely hear y'all. Oh, sorry. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the essence of attention. I was listening to your last podcast, and like what thing that really struck me is that like the more attention you give to something, the more you like go into it and able to change that thing. And it has to do like a lot with your idea of yourself. You keep thinking about your idea of yourself, then you won't be as efficient to the thing that you're actually looking towards. A lot of things I like to point to is y'all may disagree, but music. I think when you listen to music, or you have like, or like maybe like even eat food, your attention, your amount of attention that goes to that one thing is determined how much you have your ideas of yourself in the back of your head. So that's why like one of the like symptoms of like doing psychedelics is like the music is amazing because you're not thinking about yourself. It's like it's crazy because more and more like when I as I'm going through this and letting go of my what I think of myself, it just seems like music is getting way more better for me. It's like oh my god, this sounds amazing. It's like nothing like I'd get so deep into it that I wouldn't even think possible beforehand. It's crazy. And even with like fucking people, it, it gets deep with everything in reality. Everything. You go so deep into it. And it's crazy how I really realized that like even not even just like doing psychedelics, it's just attention. It's just all attention. So yeah, that's really awesome. And I'm really glad I have a community that like actually like understands what like what it means to really be in something like, to the point where you don't exist.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what's fun is it's just I guess getting more of a sensitivity for that spectrum. Like at first it kind of seems like you're either in it or you're not. And then after a while you start to expand that a bit and you start to recognize like there are different shades of being in it and not. Like this is what Andrew and I were saying about relationships, like if you're really deep in it and there's nothing but you, that makes romantic relationships very odd, right? As you were saying about sex, like it makes it really difficult to fuck yourself,
Yeah.
right? And so you kind of want to enjoy the shade of spectrum a bit and go back to being an individual, but not entirely. Like you don't have to go back to being insecure, you don't have to go back to being controlling, you don't have to go back to all of that. So it's really just understanding you're kind of always flipping in and out of just being present in what you are. Yeah, it gets deeper too.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
yeah.
My one page trash.
Yeah. Anytime
Yeah, it's
you're not.
also, huh? Ooh.
God. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my Wi-Fi is trash. I have like AT&T. This shit is really bad. And like my house, like in the opposite side of like my router and stuff, so it's really bad. I'm sorry about that, but
No.
yeah,
No worries. Go for it.
it's really it can go really deep. And I feel like the more attention you have in life, the more you're able to influence it and make it change for what you think is best. I know you don't know you don't know what's absolutely best, but I was kind of for the past couple like not like weeks, but like I've been really thinking about like I know you don't know what you think is best. No, you don't know what is best, the best scenario outcome, but you can still move in this place where you think is best, but don't attach to it in a sense, but you actually don't know. So if it doesn't go your way, then that's fine because you don't know what's best, but you just can't not do anything. But like you could still go in the place where you think is best, just don't attach to that movement. I want to see how you'll think about that.
Yeah. because we're always having influence, right? And we don't know what it's going to be. We don't know what the impact is going to be. So we don't ever, as you said, we don't know what's best. So what can we do? What's a way to have a better understanding of what's going on? It's letting go of our perception of what's best and having actual sensitivity to what's happening. Because anytime we have an idea of what's best, we're not going to see the situation for what it is. We're going to see it through a lens. We're going to see it through a conceptual idea of where we think it should be. So we're not actually seeing the situation for what it is. And as we drop those ideas of what we think is best or what we think should or shouldn't be happening, we're actually seeing the situation for the first time, more or less. And so we've always had that influence. We're always influencing everything all the time, but there is a depth to the sensitivity. And that's a lot of times dictated based on how much you're actually seeing it versus how much you're seeing it through a filter of what you think you should be seeing, or how you perceive yourself is always going to be a filter, your perception of yourself. So that's going to distort the situation as well. But when you're actually seeing the situation, it's like you're seeing a different situation than when you're lost in conceptual ideas of where it should be going, or what it means about you, or how it determines your value. Like you're not actually seeing the situation for what it is. So yeah, there's going to be some more influence there when you're actually seeing it versus seeing, a super fucking filtered version of it. And that sensitivity allows you to actually be there for what it is and have that degree of influence.
Yeah, the filter of it is never what it is. And I put this in the comments like when I first joined, that even the smallest little beliefs, you could go throughout your day and believing that you're having a bad day, you're having a tough day, but that still is a belief. So you're just going to be going through the rest of the day believing that you're having a bad day, and it's going to make it seem more real than it is. You're going to make it seem like you're actually having a bad day when that's just a belief. It's just a filter you put over what's actually happening in reality. So
because who
even
enjoys a bad day?
Even like the smallest, it could be the most minute things, but if you have a belief of if you think that's what actually is going on, then it's going to distort your view. It's going to it goes too deep.
Yeah, it's always going to distort that view. Anything you settle upon, goes very deep, because it's still like there's still degrees. This past week, we've put out a couple episodes where we talk about this specifically. There are degrees of false certainty that we continue to settle upon that have become so habitual that we don't even realize that we're settling upon it, and we're still doing it. And so, yeah, as those start to get peeled back, as those start to be like, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of depth, and I have no fucking idea how deep that shit goes. But yeah, you start to realize that you've only ever been interacting with yourself as yourself. Your conceptual idea of yourself is not the reality of what you are. Every person you interact with is you. And so you're always just talking to yourself, interacting with yourself. And so that influence isn't so much you having influence, but just being influence, an experience of influence and being influenced simultaneously all the time, forever.
Yeah. And it feels like the more that you believe it, it's like the more beliefs that you have over what reality is, actual reality is, it's like making separation seem more convincing. It's like the more that you believe, the more separate you actually feel from reality, the more separate you feel from actual people. And it feels like all these concepts are going against you, even yourself. If you have concepts about yourself, it's going to be hitting against you. If you have concepts about other people, it's going to be going against you. So it feels like every single concept about separation is going to hit back at you at some form of pain. And that's how this comes up, and you have to let go of it. Oh, and also, I just thought of an amazing question, but I don't have enough time. It's a question about torture. What can y'all learn about torture? Like, if other people were going through like a large physical discomfort and pain, like what could they learn of that?
That's a lot. That's a great question. We don't have time to get into it, but I do encourage you to come back, and I will try and get it to the topic of torture in the next episode of Raw. As always, from pain, we learn how much we can get through. We learn exactly what's important to us and whether or not it's worth standing up for. Right? I mean, that's at least the point. That's why torture doesn't actually work. Committed. That's why it should be abolished and given up. Right? Because people who are really committed don't give a shit if they're being tortured. They learn what their priorities are. But that's all I got for you today, man. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, it was great to see you again. I hope to see you next time.
Yeah, hopefully I'll creep out my weird like whole bunch of flags around my room. I have a flag collection.
That's awesome.
Awesome, dude.
All right, see y'all.
All right. See you, Justin.
God damn it, leave button.
That was awesome. That's a good question about torture, but we're going to have to leave that unexplored for now, unless, of course, somebody would like to jump on here and in the call-in show and ask about torture after this, in which case that's up to you, audience. You're welcome to do so. We do have somebody else in the queue. Of course, Amanda is joining us, and she has nothing specific to talk about. So this should get interesting. I wonder what she'll bring up, because with Amanda, it's always difficult to tell, but it should be a good conversation. Everybody who's been listening to the podcast knows Amanda as being pretty much necessary for everything that we do with Dualistic Unity in a big way. So welcome, Amanda. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Amanda.
We cannot hear you. Oh, there we got some laughter, but aside from that, you're breaking up on it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, hey guys, how you guys doing?
Doing well. I made it to my hotel in West Texas right now. So yeah, it's a good spot.
Yeah, I mean, you had a high chance of survival. You're a white male and you're straight.
Straight white males tend to do all right in the South. So yeah, I don't feel too bad. Besides, the big bag of drugs in the back of my car. But
even then, they just give you a slap on the wrist. We just get a slight reminder. I know I changed my last name because that's what I used to joke about, that my name gives it away because I present, or at least some people think that I look Spanish because I come from a Spanish family, and other people do not. Most people don't. So I will get away. I guess I'm passing. So people have given me breaks, and I've noticed that my darker family members don't get the same breaks as me. But when they look at the name, I'm like, shit, you're giving it away. Like, what the fuck? We were an undercover agent. We would have gotten through. We would have gotten through security if they hadn't checked the paperwork. But I have the gift of gab, so I can usually talk myself both into and out of trouble. But that was the last thing I heard before I was waiting in the waiting room on Zoom was you had to hide a bag of drugs, and I was like, I resonate.
Yeah, road trip necessities, right? And yeah, I didn't smoke for the last 2 days. So as soon as I parked, I went back there and took a quick little rip and checked in. And then the first room I tried to check into, there was just a person in there. They had all their shit in there, and I was like, oh, all right. And I didn't look too deep into it, but yeah, I had to recheck in and all that fun stuff. So I took our Instagram live from a little conference room that I found, and now we made it. So here I am.
Nice. I didn't think that I would. So I saw you guys were in the live and nobody had jumped in to be on the call. So I was like, oh, perfect. I was like, I pulled over at this ghetto gas station. I was like, it's broken down. I was like, if they stop, I'll just play damsel in distress. I'll be like, I got lost, officer. I needed to pull over to find my way. If they had asked me, what am I doing at an abandoned gas station? So I already had my cover story ready to go. And then I was in the waiting room and I was like, fuck, I'm only 10 minutes away from home. If somebody's there for 10 minutes, I can make it home. And then I was a minute away. I was like, shit, I didn't want to be in the car, but fuck it, it's all good. I just came back from hiking and I had a business meeting technically with one of my coworkers who's really just a good friend, and we just booked time on the calendars on our work days so we can go hiking and get paid for it, which is awesome. But we do talk about work while we're there, just that's it. We just, like most meetings, we don't get anything done. We just talk. But at least we're hiking when we're chatting. So that was always fun.
That's awesome. I'm appreciating the amount of multitasking that's happening at the moment as you're talking to us about your day, driving your car, fiddling with electronics, trying to maintain a signal. Honestly, I'm just confused trying to keep up with all of it.
That's all right. That's all right. Most people who watch me say that I make them feel tired just by watching me, or that I tend to outwork them. And I'm like, that's all right, because when I fuck off almost with just as much enthusiasm as when I actually get things done. So, you know, don't bank on me to always be doing extra shit every day.
That is fair. Well, I have a question here from the audience, and I'm going to throw it out into the general air because we don't have anything to talk about specifically at the moment. So this person microdosed in their early 20s after a full trip, and it helped with mental stability 10-ish years ago. But they felt themselves slipping back into old habits and planning on doing another trip followed by more microdosing after that. But they're a little apprehensive and they can't kick that anxiety. So they're feeling anxiety before having a psychedelic experience. Anybody have any words of advice?
I need that question asked one more time because my connection went out. It's just probably because I was walking back into my apartment, so my Wi-Fi was connecting. So somebody is like in their 20s, microdosed, and they have concerns.
They did microdose. 10-ish years ago, they had a positive experience with microdosing where they found their stability, they found their feet, as it were, and they experienced all the benefits that we've been talking about. But then they stopped doing so, and it's been a long time, 10-ish years, and now they're thinking about doing it again, but they're feeling anxiety about doing so again. That would be the whole thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is do it, because whether you feel anxious or not, there's no way to predict what the experience is going to be. And so you have the choice to pursue it with the anxiety or to pursue it without anxiety or to not pursue it. All options are available, and it's just pick one and see what happens ultimately, because I can't really offer them any certainty. It's just, do it or not, man. It's up to you. I'm not going to lose any sleep, and hopefully you don't either by whatever choice you pick. But in my opinion, they'll be fine.
I agree with that. I would say, I think with that, it's first of all, it's super normal to have that. And the reality of, going through microdosing for a period of time and then bigger dose or whatever, and now feeling like you've kind of lost your track with things like that, with mushrooms, with psychedelics. They're just kind of showing you the rawness of the uncertainty that's always been there. And so technically, like, you don't need to take the mushrooms to tap back into that state, but they can be a helpful assistant in that. But it really is just comes down to questioning. If you are going to take some, like, start small. There's no rush to dive back into taking a massive trip. I think working your way back up to a higher dose is perfectly fine. There's no rush to like, oh, I got to take mushrooms, got to prove it to myself. So I got to take 3 grams right now. It's like, no, you don't have to do that. You can take 0.3 or 0.2, see how that feels. And, you're not going to have a very difficult experience with that, with a microdose, and just kind of work your way up from there. And in terms of that, but yeah, in terms of the guarantee of how it's going to be, I think it's having a little bit of fear of it is very normal, but at the same time, there isn't anything to fear with them. Like, they're going to show you what you need to see, like understanding that whatever you go through, whatever experience you have, whatever, ups and downs you go through, it's exactly it as it should be happening, because that's how it's happening. It shouldn't be happening any other way necessarily. So understanding that, like, starting to feel certain things, being like, and this is okay, and this is okay, and this is okay, and this is okay, always has helped me going through it. So that's what I got.
That's interesting. I have a running theory that, because often we'll feel anxiety before something happens, we don't even know what's coming. and we can feel anxiety. It's like, why am I feeling a little bit of anxiety? And so we always give it a reason, and usually that reason is our deepest, darkest fear because of how we identify and whatnot. But that's just an assumption. It's false certainty, like anything else. But we're still feeling something freaking intense before we decide that it's anxiety. And so I think that the size of our anxiety is kind of indicative of the potential change that we have in front of us. So in a mushroom trip, and this is true for even for me, and again, like I am not afraid of mushrooms at all, but I will still feel what you would translate as anxiety before a trip if I haven't tripped for a little while. Well, why? Well, because I know there's a big shift, or at least a shift that's going to happen back towards center, right? And so there's a change from who I feel I've become or who I'm holding on to, and the act of surrender that's necessary to get back to who I am, right? And so then that anxiety is kind of a good thing. It indicates that there's a change. As you already know, it's the reason that you're experimenting or at least entertaining the idea of psychedelics again. There's a change that you're looking for. The anxiety is what you have to go through to get there. Now, you don't have to do that with psychedelics. You could do that through a year of pushing the envelope and experimenting with challenging things that make you really uncertain over and over and over again. So you're experiencing anxiety back to back to back to back and pushing through that way. And you'll have the same thing. A year from now, you will be a totally changed person. Or you can have a trip.
Love it. For the jet fuel or not. Change is always available. I love that.
And of course,
Hopefully-
now you've settled in, and now we're at the end of your time.
Hey, that's all right. I was just calling in to help out the team, just to help fill some time a little bit earlier than at the halfway point where people start to stack. And so I was like, the hike took a little longer, but let's start the trend. Let's get the calls coming in. So, I did my part. Love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Amanda. It's always great to have you here.
Yeah, we appreciate you very much. Thanks for kicking things off. All right.
We have another person here, Tobias, and Tobias would like to discuss mushrooms and new insights regarding life. So that's always a good conversation. I'm in for it. That sounds great.
Fuck yeah. Me too. I'm excited to hear what Tobias has for us today.
Hello?
Hey, Tobias, how you doing, man?
That's good. I'm just laying in bed, so I'm not gonna turn on my camera.
No worries.
Yeah, I put just wanted to talk. I today I took about around 6 to 7 grams worth of mushrooms for the first time. Well, I took 60 grams fresh because I grew them myself. And I took 20 grams yesterday. And yesterday it was just peaceful feeling. And today I just took the 60 grams, and I was also kind of anxious before, but then I took 20 grams in the morning and then another 40 grams later on, and the 20 grams from the morning kind of guided me to go outside, and then the 40 grams hit me and I was just wandering through this open field, just laid down on a field of flowers, looked up into the sky. It was mind-blowing. And yeah,
I mean, that's incredible. I'm very curious what kind of mushrooms you got, because is it
Because I'm
is
pretty
it
sure
legit
that I would just be in the fetal position. Yeah.
yeah. No, the strain is called Golden Teacher. Maybe you've heard of them.
Are you sure you're
Wow.
eating grams? Because that's a lot of grams.
Well, I mean, it's 60 grams fresh is equivalent to 6 grams dry.
Okay. Fair enough. I can work with 6 grams dry. That's a good trip. That's a very healthy trip.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I got up and I went to the petting zoo, and that was amazing as well. And yeah, man, the just perspectives on life and are incredible. Just letting go of this idea of yourself. And I really connected with how First Nations used to live, just living off of the land, not taking more than you need, and just being kind of tribal. And yeah, I just wanted to, yeah,
Yeah,
share
life
that
was very different.
experience. Yeah. And it's just incredible how control has just control and greed has just shaped a lot of our society. And I want to feel like it's sad, but it's also just it is sad in a way, but it's also it is what it is. Like that is just human nature. I feel like even I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Egotistical nature, I would say, but it is. Yeah, we got caught in an illusion, believed to be the truth, a figment of our imagination, our idea of ourself, where our values derive from. That's just determined based on our perception, and we ran with it, and we've ran a very long time with it. Relatively speaking, not that long, but it feels like a while that we've been running with that belief that our values derive from anything outside of just the reality of what we are at our core that could ever possibly be determined by that. And so with that comes all of these repercussions, all of these consequences in a society. And I think a big part of that was, we stepped away from psychedelics and things like that because they didn't offer the control. It threw into that uncertainty. And that was, that became our biggest fears as we started to define ourselves and measure ourselves and perceive our value, was not knowing how we stacked up, not having that certainty, that false certainty. It was scary as fuck. And, there are things that help kind of peel away any of that false certainty. And basically we're somehow able to make those illegal just to reinforce that sprint we were on towards, the depth of an illusion, to see how far it goes.
That idea of uncertainty, I feel like it is so beautiful. In comparison to this false certainty, I feel like is just so limiting, self-limiting.
It can be. Absolutely. It's interesting you're talking about going back to the indigenous perspective, but what we're really talking about is just when there was less egotistical control, that it wasn't quite so much structure. But the thing is that level of uncertainty, while there's so much freedom, because admittedly, like, you could just walk through the forest and find some mushrooms and eat them, and nobody's going to tell you shit because there's no law enforcement or anything like that. There you have freedom. On the other hand, something could eat you. And so there's a lot of uncertainty there too. And so their world was so fundamentally different than ours. Like, it's kind of funny, like, in the town I was living in at one point, the high school kids decided that they wanted to relate to homeless people. And so what they did was they took an evening out where they had sleeping bags and like little pup tents, and they slept on the sidewalk outside their high school to relate to homeless people. And while I understand what they're trying to do, that's so far from the experience that homeless people are having. If they even tried to go near a school, for one, they would be kicked out or possibly arrested. It's rare that they have a sleeping bag, and they have nowhere to go the next morning, right? So it's like they're trying to get the experience without ever being able to actually understand it from their point of view. And the same is true with us. Like, I know I went and lived 8 months in the forest at one point, and even that was nowhere close to the way they used to live, the way we used to live. Like, I knew I could walk into town if I needed to. I knew there was a hospital if I really needed it, you know, like things like that. There was none of that back in the day. None of that. If you were lucky, you had like, you know, a medicine man or a healer of some kind in your tribe. And even then it was kind of hit or miss whether or not that infection out of diarrhea was going to kill you.
But I feel like also, sure, you could go into the forest and get killed by some animal, but why is that inherently bad? I mean, that's just you're attached to your own life. It's just why.
I mean,
I hear you, but nonetheless, you'd jump off a trail if there was a snake that jumped out at you.
Well, of course, you're still gonna try and preserve your life, but you shouldn't be so incredibly attached to it. I feel like it's just as uncertain. I could go out and another human being could kill me, or you could be in America and get shot. I mean, what do you? I guarantee the statistics on that are more likely for you to get shot than get eaten by a bear or a wolf.
Now, yeah, absolutely. There
Well,
were
of
no
course.
guns like 10,000 years ago.
I'm sure the statistics were 100% higher to get killed by animals back then compared to guns, because they didn't exist. But yeah, that's just a silly point. But
yeah, I mean, yeah, everything's still uncertain. We've been able to maintain some layer of a perception of control, but it doesn't actually exist. It still doesn't exist. Our, you know, blueprint for life doesn't guarantee a happy and fulfilling life, but we invest in it thinking that it does. You know, just because we have police officers doesn't mean everyone's going to be safe. Actually, a lot of people are less safe with them now, but we believe that it's the case. We want it to be the case, and we just keep investing in the evolution, investing in it. It doesn't, yeah, as you said, it's still inherently uncertain.
Within reason, I think that's the point, is that we really have the impression that we can hold off that uncertainty, right? Like we say, yeah, well, okay, but the police aren't going to protect us. It's like, that's true, but you'll still call them if something happens, right? And why? Because chances are you're going to survive if you do, right? More often than not. And it's same with the hospitals and whatnot. You may not trust doctors, but if you break a leg, you're going to go see one. You know, why? Well, because there's a certain degree of certainty that goes with that. It's not true certainty. I mean, obviously the doctor could still kill you. Obviously, you know, the police could be corrupt or anything else. But the fact is that that structure is still there, where at one point there was none. There were no structures, you know, and while that's beautiful, it's also terrifying unless you're willing to be totally responsible. And it's not just being eaten by animals, it's also being able to find food, find balance, preserve your life. You know, like there's a lot to surviving on your own.
for sure. I want to say something, but I know my time is up. So, love you guys.
Likewise, always nice when you can call in, man. I hope that we get to see you on the Patreon call after this, because of course there's a tier 2 call after this.
I'm going to sleep, but I'll get on. There's a Patreon call tomorrow, right?
Of course, absolutely.
Okay, I'll be there.
Sounds good, man. Have a good night. Thank you for joining us.
Love it.
Great to see
See ya.
you, Tobias.
So there was a good question there that I'd like to explore a little deeper while we don't have anybody in the queue at the moment. But why? Why are we doing any of it? Right? If I'm not doing it for egotistical satisfaction, if I'm not doing it for some sense of control, if I'm not doing it for a reason, why am I doing it? That's why I always find it interesting that, like, everybody asks about free will. Do we have free will or don't we have free will? You're experiencing will. You're trying to answer a question that doesn't need to be asked. The answer is right in front of you. The important part is what you are. The important part is the embodiment of will. That's what you are. But we tend to get lost again in this idea of, but what? But how? We're not paying attention to what's right in front of us, which is what we are.
Exactly. Is my internet doing all right? It
A little
looks
bit better. You were having some connectivity issues earlier.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can, if we don't have someone on right now, I can try and switch to my
That would be a
hotspot
good
quick
idea.
and
Yeah.
see if that's any better. All right, I'm gonna try. I don't know if you're gonna lose me here, but
No worries. I will do some announcements. I will go into the Ray announcements voice, as it were. I just want to say hi and thank you to everybody who can join us today. We really appreciate you being here for the call-in show. Season 5 has been a blast so far. I know we're only a week into it. We recorded episode 2 yesterday. It is not done editing yet because honestly, I'm trying to just catch up on all the Patreon videos that still need to be published. So this is a great time to be on Patreon right now for a number of reasons, including the Vermont mini retreat, which is coming up on August 24th to August 28th. This is going to be great. It's a cabin, just shared space. There's a number of rooms. You can check out the details. Right now, it's early access tickets for Patreon. Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 have already had access. There are, I believe, 5 tickets left for the event. If you are on Patreon, you also get an awesome discount. Tier 3 gets a $350 discount. Tier 2 gets a $150 discount. Tier 1 gets a $50 discount. And if you want to upgrade to Tier 3, even just for a month, to get that discount, I highly recommend doing that. Like, we don't care. We don't mind. You go ahead and take advantage of the system, as many systems as you fucking can. You just get in there and do that. But the point is that if you want to save the money, not only do you get to be a Tier 3 supporter for a month, which means you get access to every group we do every week for that month. You also get some merch if you stay on for a little longer, but you also get a free one-on-one with Andrew or myself. 25 minutes, just you and I, or Andrew and yourself, having a chat, and that's a bonus. It doesn't matter if you stay as a Tier 3 supporter or not, you still get that bonus. So that's nice. And if you'd like, we'll give you a shout out in the video credit roll of all of our episodes. So we do have somebody in the queue. I'm going to check out what they'd like to talk to, and I'll pass it to Andrew, who I believe is having less connectivity issues.
I certainly hope so. I'm on my hotspot now, and it seems to be a decent connection. Yeah, that last thing you brought up though with the but why, it's funny how, those types of questions, like, what about free will? Do I have free will? Like, who's asking? Like, it's our confusion about what we are that even allows for us to think that those questions are reasonable things to ask. It's like, why not? I don't know. Have you explored what you are? Have you questioned the assumptions that you settle upon about what you are? Like, you might find out that it's not really about the why, or where is this going, or what does this mean about me? Because you're just like, we're settling upon fictions. And so we're living in a world of fictions and illusions. So of course things don't make sense. Of course we're confused as fuck because we're not actually experiencing reality. We're asking about reality when we're not even experiencing it. We're asking, but why? But what's the point? You're asking about something that you're not even experiencing, that you're not even in. You're existing in an illusion, asking questions about the reality of what the experience actually is. It's like, of course it doesn't make sense. Of course it's not be able to be comprehended. You're living entirely in an illusory reality that isn't even it. So we ask questions like, but why? It's like, you're asking about something you're not even experiencing. Let go of the assumptions, let go of the false certainty, question what you think you are. And you may find out that things start looking a little bit different. And your need to find out why, that's rooted in fear, isn't quite so important anymore.
Well said. Well said. We're going to get to our next guest, but I do want to answer a question quickly as it was in the comments section. Is there any likelihood of an Australian mini retreat or a New Zealand retreat when you're down this way? At the moment, we are planning a major normal 9-day retreat in Australia for April next year. After that, Andrew and I are going to be hanging around for a little bit. So chances are there may be, in fact, 2 mini retreats on the weekends after that retreat. And then in between, we might, pop around for a couple of events. I don't think we'll be coming to New Zealand, but at least we have not discussed that possibility or even what the pricing would look like for that. But we are going to be there for, I believe, 3 weeks or thereabouts. So there's all kinds of possibilities. And as we get closer to the event, we will fill you in on the details. Okay, so that said, our guest wants to discuss language as a tool for getting lost in thought and feeling to be found in another's mind. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. I believe the person's name is Jeannie, or at least that's what was on the contact form. Hello.
Hey, Jeannie.
Nothing quite yet.
Not quite. Yeah. Oh, connecting.
There we are. Any luck with your audio? Hello?
Sometimes if you're on the computer, the bottom left where it says mute, there's a little arrow. Sometimes that can be selected on a speaker instead of a microphone.
Hello.
There you are.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Doing very well.
Great.
Thank you for joining us.
You're on mute right now. I'm not sure if you're talking, but we would love for you if you'd like to expand on the commentary you put in with coming on the call.
Yes.
Awesome.
I just wanted to say it's lovely to meet both of you. I have been listening to the podcast for about a year and a half now. It's actually my sister who introduced me to what you guys were all about. So yeah, I have so many thoughts to dive into, but I just wanted to first say that it's so crazy that you're going to Quinn 92 because I actually live in Indianapolis and he's coming here in June and I'm actually going to see him then. And I was like, that's just so cool how, you know, our lives kind of like intermingle with the ripples that are sent out by what you guys are talking about. And yeah, I just want to say it's received. So I just wanted to just share with you some realizations that I've been having, mainly about language and how it's very interwoven with our culture and how we view things, especially with the duality of masculinity and femininity, and what you think then it would be like if we were able to share like different languages instead.
That's a great question. I mean, when I was younger, my first language was French. I don't remember any of it anymore because, frankly, I don't like it. I live in Canada, and French is our second language here. And you talk about like masculine and feminine. It's with everything. It's with everything in French. It has to be male or female, even down to like boats. I think boats are female and cars are female, but certain other objects like an apple is male. Like it's the weirdest thing, and there's no reason for it whatsoever, but it changes how you think. It changes how you think. And so I wonder exactly what you're asking, like how much of that is how much is influencing how we think, but how much of that is just us not questioning those concepts, right? Like instead of using them, they're using us.
Yeah, it does. It definitely makes me wonder with language and, you know, to what degree, like how seriously we take like something like French that's all, you know, everything's either masculine or feminine, and it's taken very seriously, whereas other languages, it's a little bit more loosely taken. And it's like all reinforcing that division too, like any sort of words and things and descriptions of things. And this is, I've brought it up a bunch on the podcast recently, but just how raw that uncertainty is beyond the labels, beyond the names, beyond all of those things that language kind of reinforces. Like language, we don't recognize that the description is not the described. The idea of the thing is not the thing itself. The word that we use to point to it, to label it, is not the reality of the thing. And like, I don't think we spend enough time recognizing that like that is the case, that it's not that thing. Like it's reality no differently than you are. And we've taken that language so seriously that we believe it actually means something about it, and it proves the division. It's like, just because you label something as a thing and something else as another thing does not mean they're divided. It's just a convenient thing that we've taken to be the truth, and now it's gone very far in a direction of, and it all comes back to reinforcing the idea of you. Like, as you perceive division between things, as you perceive division between yourself and God, it's all reinforcing that illusion of you. And so language has done a great job of reinforcing that, but it doesn't mean that it's necessary. It's like, if we were actually fucking responsible to any degree, we would be able to utilize language as a awesome tool, because it makes things way more convenient. But we haven't been responsible, and we've kind of just allowed our assumptions to run amok. And language is something that has the potential to be taken in a direction that does reinforce the way that we see things. But yeah, like with everything, it's a tool, not inherently good or bad.
Yeah, good. Would you like to follow up? I'm not sure how to refer to you. Is it Jeannie?
Yes, yeah, it's Jeannie, as in like, I would say, Jean as in pants, because that's what I used to do. But I did change the spelling recently because I would rather be more like a bean, which is weird, but whatever. It's just who I'm choosing to be rather than who I've been told I am my whole life, So it's like, it's a transformation, if you wish, like, it's just, it is what it is. But yes, it is Jeannie. And I, just like to say that you guys both make really awesome points. Like, I totally hear you, knowing that, like, again, with the duality of like nothing being good or bad, those words don't even exist in my vocabulary anymore, because they just don't do anything justice. So like, I've been working on like burning words that don't really do me anything, and don't really like speak my truths through this voice that I have that is for language. What else is it for? Noise making? I don't know. Like, I'm questioning everything that I've been told, and then knowing that like what I've been told my whole life has manipulated me because of the sounds, the reverberations, like whatever you wish, to like truly influence been the person that you are right now. And it's your choice in every moment to acknowledge that or not. So I guess I think that it's all about how we speak, and it's in our nature to speak what we see into existence. And I think it's lame when people only want to complain about what's going on and like, not actually see what's in front of us. Like, I feel like we all bring up, like coworkers, like really not understanding on the same level. So like, that's why it's so cool to like have this community to really talk to and like ask any questions. So you guys are doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. No, we appreciate it. Absolutely. It's always important to just keep questioning. Like, every time you settle on an opinion or something, you're like, yeah, but I don't know. Right. And then that just keeps allowing you to become more and more reasonable. Right. Which is why you don't settle on complaints about things. That's why a good many of my friends over the years have gotten frustrated with me, because they'll just want to sit there and bitch about something. And I'm that kind of person who's like, yeah, but at least we're learning this, or at least this is happening. And after a while, they're just like, stop doing that. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Would you rather bask in your suffering? I can allow you to do that. And then they just hate it when you put it like that.
But they'd rather that false certainty. They love it so much, and we do it so much. We do it all the time. Like, right now I could just start making a bunch of like and like have this assumption then in my head that everyone's going to perceive that in a specific way. Everyone's going to get uncomfortable. Everyone's going to think I'm weird for doing it. none of that actually exists in reality. That's all my perception, all of it, no matter what looks I get, no matter how people react. Like, I don't know what they think of that. Any perception of response to anything that we do is our perception. Like, none of it exists in objectivity. None of it is actually the reality of the response or the reaction. And so, and that's just the raw uncertainty. And you can live there, and because that's where freedom lies. It's not about, feeling good about yourself. It's like being willing to remain uncertain as fuck all the time. Like, even with the little things that arise, like, oh, they probably think this. It's like, you have no fucking idea. Keep moving, keep doing shit. But yeah, that uncertainty is key, because it's all there is. There isn't even certainty anyway. So might as well just step into it, right?
But I do want to say quickly, Jeannie, thank you for being here, and thank you for listening to the podcast for as long as you have. I mean, it's great that you connected with us, and I hope to see you in some of our groups. As always, you make this everything that it is. If you've been listening to the podcast this long, then that's the reason the podcast has been going on this long. And we really do appreciate that, and we're glad that you're able to call in today. Hopefully we'll see you at the next call-in show on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time.
Thanks, guys. Love ya. Bye.
Bye, Jeannie. Great to see you. All right.
I just wanted to once again reiterate that we have a call-in show on Thursdays now, 3 Thursdays out of 4 in every month, because on one of those Thursdays, we're going to be doing the community topics. Somebody was asking about that today on Patreon or possibly Discord. Where do they vote? They vote on Discord. So, which you can find through the website. Just go to the community tab in the navigation bar. You will find our Discord. It's totally free. You can join. We have over 850 members, I believe, at the moment. The community grows all the time. There's a lot of conversation happening there. We have a lot of different channels. One of those channels is called Community Topics. And in that channel, you can throw in a recommendation. Now, at the moment, the Community Topics episodes are only being done once per month. So the vote is only happening once per month, but it's going to be a longer vote. You will actually have a week to vote on these topics. We're hoping to get more of the community voting on them, because although we do have a good turnout, not everybody has the time to vote before the voting closes, because often we post it the day before on the previous episodes. So I just wanted to bring that up very quickly, that if you'd like to vote on a topic for community topics, it's on the Discord, or suggest a topic on Discord, vote on Patreon. But if you haven't checked it out yet, go and check out all the community topics in our playlist on YouTube, because there's 37 or 38. There's a lot of community topics. So chances are we've covered what you're asking about.
Yeah. Good chance. Hence the shift to once per month, because there's a lot on there. And the funniest part too, people wait to bring things up on a community topics, and now it's like, it's only once a month. We have groups 5 days a week. You can bring up any topic that you want. You have a community topic you want to discuss, just raise your hand in a Patreon group, or even on our Wednesday groups that are totally free. Like, you can do that too. We have a public group tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Hop in there and ask it. Like, we are nothing if not available. So you got questions, we're here for it. We're here to discuss it. And we'll probably also be able to point you to an episode, just because we have covered so many things. But yeah, if you got questions, hop onto Patreon, hop into a group and just ask it. Or if you have something to cover, just ask about it. But yeah, that fucking holy shit, that's just been hitting me. That last thing we were talking with Jeannie about, with the reality of our perception. Everyone else's perception is my perception of their perception, because there's no them. Like, there's never been a them. It's always coming from me. Everything about my reality is coming from me. And they're also me too. But like, anything, like any fucking idea of anyone or anything that I settle upon is just a fragment of a fragment of a fragment of a perception that, based on how uncomfortable I feel about recognizing that it never is it, but like getting like snappier with that realization is like, oh man, it's like it's crazy. It's like very freeing, but also like stepping into an entirely new world, basically. And it's been like fluctuating between that, feeling like a dream. I'm glad I didn't get too many dream-like feelings when I was driving, but at the same time I did. And it was like, it doesn't change the reality of being here now. It's just that you're finally being here now fully, like that. You're still here now. It's just like how here now are you, kind of like how much is in the way of being that. And there's always so much, like there's always been so much in the way.
Yeah. And we can't understand that by thinking about it. See, that's the thing. It's kind of like, so I remember there was a point where my daughter, I think she was like 10 or something like that. She was trying to figure out what it's like to be an adult, right? Or even a teenager. And it's like, you can't understand it, right? And then as she's gotten older, she's kind of built an idea of like what it is to be an adult. And it's kind of laughable. It's adorable. And you're just like, wow, that's so overly simplistic and biased and sounds super easy and pleasant. Like it's not anything like they can envision it being, because they can only envision it from within the spectrum that they currently live within. But growing up is the spectrum widening, right? That's what maturity is. And so that's what we're talking about, is that our appreciation for the context is changing because we're opening ourselves up to more and more and more context. That's what questioning does. That's what not settling on assumptions does. It widens the tank. But with the wider tank, you got to learn how to swim differently. You know, there's different currents. It can get a little bit more turbulent, right? Because you have more room to move, until eventually there's no sides on the tank. And you realize there was never a tank or any water. It's always just been you being more fluid. It's always been you gaining more movement in what you actually are, rather than limiting yourself to this tiny little box with very little influence, because that's what feels safe. Because that's what it is. That's what feels safe, right? The alternative is to just float through life. And I say float, but that's more or less just how you carry yourself, quite literally. But it's just to move through life from one thing to another, to act accordingly, you know, not to resist the thoughts about your character, because that's how your brain processes context, right? But not to own them either, not to take them seriously, to understand that they're fleeting, that you are in fact change incarnate from moment to moment to moment. And until you stop to hold on to that, figure out what that means, is assess how you're doing or what your value is or any of that shit. That's what you are. That's what you are, is intelligence and change. But we limit it and hold on to this small idea because, well, frankly, it's easier, or at least it looks easier in the short term. The alternative is, you know, everybody around us has to either get out of the way or change as well. And often we just don't want to be left out. We don't want to be alone. And so we don't want to change, because that change might be turbulent and unpleasant, and it might involve us losing people that we're attached to. There's a lot that goes into it.
As you're saying all that, it was hitting me how much, like, oh my God, it's so funny when like stuff just hits you that you're like, have I not seen that, or like recognize that, or realize something that you've continued to do that like you weren't even seeing that you were doing. And I was settling upon this assumption that, yeah, everything's uncertain right now, but I have a certain perspective of things. And like, I was discounting how much my perspective shifts. Like in a year, I'm going to be seeing things very, very differently, like incredibly differently. And we maintain it. Like, I don't know if this is like, makes sense. It seems obvious, but like, I've never thought of it like this, that I'm going to be seeing things differently. Like, I've still, to a degree, like absolutely maintained a perspective that I'm going to have. Like, I don't know if it's the same perspective. Like, I don't even know I can't even pinpoint what I was settling upon, but it was just like a feeling more so, not realizing like, you know, that rawness of uncertainty that I've been talking about, like everything I look at in this room right now, you know, lamp, bed, all that shit. Like it isn't what I say that it is, but there's still it wasn't until just now that I recognized that my perspective of everything is constantly shifting and changing. And like, there was some component of me that was maintaining the idea that it didn't shift as much as it does. And it's just like hit me like a ton of bricks. And I don't even know if I'm putting it into words, but it was like a feeling like, holy fuck, I was still maintaining a lot of that perception.
Well, now that's the conversation we got into on our community topics episode about the subconscious, right? There's a lot of shit under the surface. There really is. And we really do, dodge it. But yeah, there is, whether you conceptualize it or not, or rather, whether you recognize you're conceptualizing it or not, there's a you that you're holding on to. And it's whatever the current feeling of you is. That's the problem. No matter when it is, you're going to have a different feeling of you, and you're going to go, oh, that's me. Right? But it's always you. And it's always a different feeling. I've commented before that the one thing I've recognized more and more as I get older is that different ages feel different. Right? Different parts of my life feel different. It's not just that there's different things happening. There's a different feeling. And that different feeling is a difference in my understanding of myself and my role. That really is it. Like right now, I feel totally different about my existence than I ever could have possibly fathomed feeling. And it's largely because of how much I'm coming to recognize. But I'm not holding on to where I am right now, being who I am, right? I'm the process of change, which means that even whatever perspective I'm currently holding on to for a sense of comfort, at the end of the day, this is the plateau that I stand from to understand the universe, right? There is no plateau. There's nothing to stand on except another fiction. There is no you that you're building. There is no you that you're going to change. You are change. That's what you are.
And like, it's like this underlying thing. Like, yeah, the subconscious, I guess, like it's not as, and this may be just an excuse, consciously available, I was going to say, but it's just from lack of attention, really. I guess I just maybe just now was settled down enough, relaxed enough to see that, for it to arise. But yeah, there's no, like, I couldn't have possibly fathomed 10 years ago seeing things the way that I do now. But even how I see things tomorrow, and we're still maintaining, like I say, I'm still maintaining like some conceptual idea of myself based on just like recent situations. It's like there's such a strong fucking pull to maintain some idea, to be like, that means something. At least there's that. It's like, you can't, it isn't though. It doesn't. And you don't know what it means. You don't know what it means. You don't know what it means about you. You don't know where you're going. You don't know what's happening. You really, really, really don't know what's happening right now. And like, we'll take that fucking sham of a settling upon any perception of ourself over that, over the rawness of like, you have no fucking idea what the bigger picture playing out is right now. And we have these ideas of like, the immediate situation that we're in, and make up all of these judgments. And it's such a fucking farce. It's hilarious that we even try to think that we could know the thing that we're going through, like what it's leading to, what it means, where it's going, like none of that. And especially not you to have any idea, to think that you could possibly maintain any adequate idea of where you're at, or what you are, or even how you're seeing things. Like your perception of how you're seeing things also isn't the reality of how you're seeing things. Like even that isn't it.
Fun, isn't it? Absolutely. Actually, and that brings up our next guest, which is Brittany. Brittany would like to discuss industrial and capitalist culture, which should be an interesting discussion considering where we're segueing from. We're just going to wait a quick moment for her to connect with us. I don't know if this is the Brittany who has called in previously, but if not, then it's nice to have a new guest.
Brittany.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing great.
Very well.
Yeah.
Very well. Enjoying the call-in show. Glad that you could join us.
Yeah, thank you. What I wanted to kind of get your insights into is I have always struggled with the idea of like, self and all these other perspectives, but like just accepting the idea of like the industrialized capitalistic, like where people are wanting to take more advantage of others to help themselves. And it's always just been a little bit of a struggle for me to get past that.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting how my perception of this has changed. I'll pass it to Andrew shortly because, of course, he's looking at it from a different perspective. I've been around for a while, and my perspective has changed in the same way my perspective of trauma and insecurity has changed. There's a certain portion of my life where you go through a lot of insecurity and you get controlling and you try to establish like the path to happiness and all that, and it's really just the result of a mentality that's not fully developed. That's why it's early development in terms of the ego. And then we grow past that through hardship and trials and errors and things like that, but we get really committed to that mentality for a bit. The same is true collectively because we are also the collective. So I wish it was as simple as saying like capitalism sucks, because it does, but it sucks because we make it suck, because we ourselves always put ourselves first. We don't see ourselves as the collective. We don't see ourselves as one, and it's because again we're still largely underdeveloped. And so I think the best thing that we can do is what we're doing, in that we learn to value things differently. Like, give you an example. When I'm pricing out something on Dualistic Unity, for example, this is our worst habit. It was the same thing when I was a life coach. We always try and underprice it as much as we can, which is not a capitalistic priority. Like, we should be trying to, encourage the bottom line and get more sales and profit and stuff like that. But we don't, because that's not what Dualistic Unity is about. That's not what we want to do. That's not really the point of all of this. And so right there, we're changing the mentality that drives a lot of the system, and just in changing it in ourselves, right? And we hope that through the discussion that changes with other people as well. But I think that that's really it, is that capitalism and the toxicity that goes with it is a symptom. It's more a symptom than something that needs to be addressed directly, because I don't think we can address it directly. I think we'll always end up with short-term reform. We'll always end up with somebody who's like, I'm going to beat the banks or whatever it is, and then that will only last as long as that person keeps their promise, and then we'll lose sight of it, and we'll go right back to what we were doing before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, oh shoot, I always forget the timer. Hold on, give me 1 second, because I have a number of thoughts, definitely.
It's okay. I won't take up too much of your time.
No, do not worry.
We are happy to have you here for sure. It's just, we forget how to do these things because, once again, we're not focused on being good business people.
Like, Andrew, you had one fucking job, dude. Put the timer. Like, yeah, the conversation is too much fun. But yeah, because I totally hear you with whether it's capitalism or suffering in reality. Like, I got caught for a while on just thinking about how much suffering there is in reality, and like, how can I be happy if there's so many people suffering so much? And whether you get frustrated about it or you get down about it, recognizing that you are reality, you are society. And so as we get overly frustrated, angry, down about certain things, like, we're adding that to reality. We are adding frustration to reality. We're adding disgust to reality, or anger to reality. And so we're adding to it. And as Ray said, this is something I thought of as well, was like, how much of it is a product of how much of it is a product of a given mentality? Like capitalism is a product of perceiving ourselves as divided. So you can look at the leaves, you can look at the products of that tree, one of them being capitalism, one of them being starvation, one of them being suffering, one of them being hunger, or you can look at where that's coming from. And yes, you can keep an eye on both, but if you're focused a little too much on the leaves, you're not going to be able to focus much on the root of where it's coming from, because you can't do both 100% of that attention. So in order to actually make the impactful shift, you got to be willing to look at the root, which is the perception of division, the ideas of ourselves that we're not one thing, one organism interacting with itself, that there is me. My value is derived based on how much I own, what people think of me, all that shit. Like that, the byproduct of that is going to be capitalism. It's going to be greed. It's going to be suffering. It's going to be people starving, a ton of homelessness. Like those are all products of it. So we have to be willing to look at the root. No.
Yeah, like part of me wants to go and live out on a commune with all my friends and live life, off the grid, more or less of an idea of, living closer to nature, kind of like what the guy earlier was talking about, and really getting back to the basics of humanity and not having all these other larger constructs that we have to think about. But then there's also the other side where it's like, well, I don't want to just detach myself from the world where there could, to kind of help it get back to where it needs to be, or where I, feel that like I could help get it to a better place of like understanding. So, it's that internal battle of like, do you want to be selfish in that way to live life to be the fullest and happiest for yourself, or be a part of what it all is and try and help in little ways.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually why I came back after 8 months in the bush. It was the realization that I could do that. That was easy. That was great. I didn't have to worry about any of society's crap at all. But you're not changing the machine by stepping outside of it, right?
Yeah.
So Andrew and I, we talked about this. This is actually part of our long-term, quote unquote, business plan or aspirations possible. There's no ceiling, is what I'm saying. But the point is that I want to do the same thing in terms of not a commune, but a chunk of land where you can be self-sufficient, but I want to do it in a way that is creating a resource that then we can push that back out to the people who aren't on that land, to help them find their own way to that land where they're pushing out as well. Because the problem with that idea, and I've had it for a long time since I was in my 20s, like getting land, getting off the grid and all that, is that you're not pushing anything back into the machine that's so toxic, right? You're just getting enough for you. So I think if we can normalize altruism from that nice little safe place, then other people can get it too.
Yeah, no, hey, if y'all want help with it, that's literally, I've just, that's the idea of where I want to go as well. I studied holistic nutrition and I love that. And I have a lot of friends in like the healing world. So having like, a place where people can go to get in touch with, themselves again and nature again and like, recenter. Absolutely. I feel like, the more of those we get out there in the world, the happier we all can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the mentality in our collective changes, more of us will be able to appreciate the same vision.
Yeah. So I guess it's more or less combining both sides of it, what you can provide and how you can work it into that system.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well,
it just comes down to you and your experience and going through it. There's no one to change, but just recognitions to be had in yourself.
And participating in these call-in shows, that goes a long way too, right? Because look, we're making ripples.
I have today off. Like you guys are always on while I'm working. So like every random day I'll have off and I like get a little pop-up and I'm like, oh, sweet. So I'll like, pop in and listen. So I'm glad I got to talk to you guys today. Thanks.
Yeah, no, we're glad that you could make it for sure. These are great conversations, and hopefully you can make it to a group. We do free groups Wednesday, 6 p.m. You can register on the website, or we're going to do another call-in show on Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern time if you're off or if you're working. Either way, you can listen, but it's really nice to have you there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too, Brett. Great to chat. All right.
Well, this has been a fruitful episode, hasn't it? I just want to mention to everybody that we're going to be continuing for another hour and a half group discussion after this at the top of the hour. You can join us. Just go to patreon.com/dualistic unity. And it's $25 a month for tier 2. You get some merch, you get a bunch of other rewards and shit, but most importantly, you get to talk to us pretty much every day of the week. So if that's something that you would like to do, not something I would wish on everyone, but if it's something that you would like to do, then definitely join us on Patreon. And the only reason I say that, because again, I find self-deprecation kind of funny, but I know people out there are listening going, oh, why would he say that? It's because frankly, there are people in a mentality where I'm like radiation. And it's just because I don't give a fuck about the games that they survive on. Right. And so I'm very careful around those people, not for me, for them. You know, it doesn't do anybody any good to rattle their world too hard where they can't recover from it, where the only thing they do is vilify you. Right. And so with that understanding, you walk a little softer here and there, except where you decide not to.
Exactly. Balance and sensitivity with everything, including sometimes a lack of concern for the sensitivity or where you're stepping, or the recognition that you're just interacting with yourself. Like that's the thing too, is recognizing yourself and everyone doesn't come with some prerequisites, doesn't come with rules. It's
I
not
can
like,
call myself a little bitch.
yeah, absolutely. Like it's funny to even think that we could have rules for that. It's like, that's not very unifying. It's like, who am I
What
interacting
isn't?
with? Yeah, exactly. Exactly what is unifying? Your perception of the interaction being between yourself and someone else is not unifying. That's what's not unifying about this thing. You perceiving other people. How's that for not unifying? Like what? Like we've been able to come up with a conceptual idea of things that are unifying actions we take with other people. Like that doesn't even make any sense.
Like if it wasn't for us, you know, there would be no unity. We got to be unifying, people. We got to be unifying in order for us all to come together. It's like, what makes you think we're not?
Exactly what's in the way of you recognizing that we are already, and we're just thinking that we're not. Like, because even that desire to unify the world is inherently divisive. It's funny how everything is that, like, so much the concern, as we were just talking about, like I've gotten caught in that plenty of times, the concern for what's going on, any concern for what other people are doing ever, like being overly concerned with it. Like that's investing in the mentality. That's investing in the perception of division. Like that's not, you're watering that other tree, that tree with the leaves that are the suffering and the homelessness and the all of that shit, the atrocities, all of it. You desiring to save the world is investing in that. Like you wanting to save a world that is somehow separate from you, you thinking that you should change other people, is like, it's a tricky bastard.
Oh yeah, but then what? What do I do, Andrew? Obviously, I've got to do something, right? I can see all this toxicity. I can see all the, the division. If I'm not out there trying to solve it, what the fuck do I do with eternity? And what's odd about it is just get really involved with something you're super passionate and enthusiastic about. Embody all the insights that you're learning about not being divided from everything, and just get fucking busy being enthusiastic about what you are. That's really it. And that's what Dualistic Unity is to me. Very much. It's the product of a 20-year passion. It really is. right? But that passion leads to other things that I'm passionate about. And we're going to continue to diversify. We're going to continue to get involved with things like Brittany was just mentioning that she's got some skills that she might be able to offer the community. We have other people who have been offering skills as well. We actually have a section in our Discord about available skills within the community. And why is that? Because we want to expand the shit. We really want to just build this project, not for an end result. We're not trying to save anything, but the project is the point. How big can we make Dualistic Unity? How much impact can it have? How many different things can it get involved with? Could we start a ukulele group for no reason? You know, that kind of thing. It doesn't matter. The point is the enthusiasm and the passion and the mentality that's behind it. Your mentality of being free. So that way you can put whatever it is you have into what you're doing, and everybody in the community can benefit from it. This is what Dualistic Unity is, or it's meant to be. It's just a project that we, as one collective I, can put everything we are into. That's what it's forming into. That's what it's always kind of been intended to be. Nothing specific, but just the culmination of what we are. And so I just want to bring that up quickly, because if anybody is interested, we are in the process of finishing a business plan, quote unquote, not really, but kind of a direction as to where this could all go, as well as some information about what's currently happening and what the potential might be. If you're interested, go to dualisticunity.com/invest. If you would like to invest in this, we're going to have an investors presentation going into June. We would love to talk to you about what we're doing and what's possible and how you might be able to get involved. This is not for donations. Understand that. If you would like to support us, do so through Patreon. We do appreciate that. But if you would like to invest in Dualistic Unity and whatever it is going to be moving forward, that is something that's going to be an option.
Absolutely. And in regards to the enthusiasm, but yeah, excited for all of that coming up. There's a lot going on with the enthusiasm. Like, it's so funny how it's such a shift. Like, you can't even fathom doing something for the sake of just doing it. Like when someone asks, like, well, what are your goals? And it's like, we could come up with some, but like, why? I'm enjoying what I do every day. I enjoy having it. Like, well, you need goals, do you? If you're enjoying what you're doing each and every day, like, it's going to keep continuing to happen. Like, things are going to shift. Things are going to change. Things are going to continue on. You don't need to maintain a set of goals in order for that to happen. In fact, setting all the goals, focusing on the goals, taking time to determine the goals and measure them, it's taking time away from the experience of getting where you're going. Because you don't know you're getting to those goals. You don't know what that's going to look like. You don't know, which hit me earlier today. You don't know what you're going to look like, how you're going to see things when you get to that spot. And you set a goal a year from now, you could see things completely differently by then. That goal was just totally unnecessary. And it just took you away from the experience of being in it. Like, the goals really aren't necessary. It's just a way we use them as like an excuse to think, like, measure ourselves. Basically, that's another thing, is like, it's a measurement tool that isn't necessary either. It's like, all right, how close are we to our goals? But in our society, desiring so much control and certainty, other people need to hear that. They're like, well, how are you doing on your goals? Are they definitely going to happen? And it's like, yeah, you kind of have to, like, have that balance. And I'm just thinking about, like, investment type things, but at the same time, like, those willing to do that, especially for us in that situation, like, they understand that things are happening, and actually us taking, as I already said, taking that extra time to set goals and measure our goals and maintain them. Like, some businesses spend fucking 40% of their time setting and maintaining and figuring out goals and seeing, like, what we don't want them to be too high, but we don't want them to be too low. We want them attainable, but not, we got to be able to meet them. And it's like, we could just keep doing shit. But, that desire for certainty and control comes in, and with it comes the need to set goals.
I've actually been paid as a consultant for a company to help their employees set attainable goals. That was actually something I was paid for, and paid well for. And what's worse about it is the whole time I was kind of undermining what I was paid to do. It was just very much, like, find that enthusiasm. It's not about setting a bigger carrot. It's about, recognizing what you're getting out of right now. Because, the more you're getting out of what you're doing right now, the more you're going to get out of what you're doing right now, which means you'll find doors that weren't there, which means you'll find opportunities that people don't otherwise see because they're too busy bitching about what it is they're doing right now. That really is it. Like, there's so much in where you are. Always. This is where change happens. It's the only place that change happens is now. The only place change happens is now. And what we do is we distract ourselves and we think towards the future, and we're like, okay, but if I do this and I do this and I do this, oh, that sounds really good. I like how that makes me feel. Oh, that's really nice and comfortable. I feel secure. Absolutely, that must be the right thing for me. Therefore, it's the best. Aha, I found it. I found the answer to all of my suffering. And then we just continue on, despite the fact that as soon as we've left that place where that process just happened, it all stops making sense because you've taken a step into reality and everything's fucking changed. Everything. You've just learned something else. And the problem is that we don't take that in. We focus on that goal, regardless of the fact that we've changed a step of the way, 10 steps of the way, 2/3 of the way through the entire process. And maybe it's not what we thought it was. Maybe now all of a sudden we've changed and our priorities would be totally fucking different if we had the courage to put it down, let go of the goal for a second, and actually ask ourselves in honesty, is this what I want? Right? Is this going to give me the thing that I originally thought it would? Right? And often we don't want to ask that question because we've just invested so much time, don't you know? If I ask this question now, fuck, it's been a waste. Like, somehow we've forgotten and lost all of the lessons that we've learned along the way nonetheless. See, that's the thing. We always get caught up in the end result instead of recognizing that each and every step is what the lessons are. The lessons are the steps. What you're learning in life is how to keep stepping with grace, hopefully.
Yeah, and maintaining those goals, setting those goals isn't going to help you step any better. It's actually going to take all of your attention away from the step that you're on. But, we
Bless you.
thanks. We think that certainty is a possibility. And like, that's been hitting me too. Like, there isn't certainty. It doesn't exist. We settle upon it. We set a goal. We think we're in a certain spot. We measure our value. We do all of these things that aren't even close to reality. Like, they're not possible. Maintaining any of those conceptual ideas, doing any, like, certainty doesn't exist. And we keep trying to settle upon it and find it. And it's like, okay, well, at least I have this. It's like, you're just creating a illusion for yourself to maintain a degree of comfort that just takes your attention out of the experience that you're actually having, where all of the impact is had. Like, we're fucking ourselves so hard all the time by we're like, I'm uncomfortable. I need to be less uncomfortable. And so it's like, I'll make this up. Okay. And it's like, we're just making shit up left and right, thinking that it actually exists. And it's like, okay, well, now I feel a little bit less uncomfortable for a tiny bit. And it's like, at what cost? You stop paying attention to where you were at because you think that the possibility of having that certainty exists. And it doesn't. It still doesn't. No matter how many times you try, no matter how many ideas you create, no matter how many goals you maintain, like, the certainty doesn't exist any more than it did when you weren't doing that shit and you were just paying attention to where you're at without settling upon the false certainties. Like, it doesn't change the reality. You're not shifting reality as you maintain those illusions. You're just diminishing your fucking experience.
But, What about enlightenment and source consciousness and finding God and all of that? Isn't that going to make my life better? Isn't that, in fact, going to remove all of this suffering and all of that? It's like, no, it's not. It'll change your attitude about it. That's about it, though. It doesn't actually change the experience whatsoever, but it changes what it means to you. It changes how you perceive it and thus how you experience it. Reality is still what it is, but your perception of what it is alters so much. And that's really it. That's all it is. It's not a place to get to. It's a deepening recognition of what you are and have always been. But with that goes a certain degree of discomfort, only because we have invested so much time in false comforts. That's why it's uncomfortable. That's why, is because we've been taught to stand on a chair and then been told there's nothing to be afraid of while the chair wobbles with each and every small threat.
Exactly. It's just the relativity of what we've been investing in for so long. That's why the rawness of that uncertainty, the recognition that there was no certainty to begin with, is so uncomfortable. That's it. But it doesn't mean that it's not something you can't get used to. You can't sit in and face and actually start existing in reality, because in that experience of the discomfort, of the recognition of just how uncertain everything is, there isn't all that other bullshit that you deal with when you settle upon certainties. Like, there are so many costs, there's so many repercussions, there are so many consequences to settling upon illusions, to believing that illusions are the truth. Like, you're experiencing the costs every day, multiple times a day. We're suffering so much, and yet we get a little bit uncomfortable at the recognition of how uncertain everything is. Like, oh, everything I think isn't actually the truth. Well, that's scary. It's like, yeah, but that investment in that allows you to get rid of temporarily that uncertainty has so many costs. There's so many costs to it. And we feel a little bit of that discomfort. And we're like, we don't maintain that recognition that, oh, maybe there's something here. Like, oh, there's already a lot of cost to maintaining all of the bullshit for so long. Let's give this one a shot.
It's really funny, right? Because with our eyes open, the world is huge. Existence itself and the span of it moving forward, the prospect of the future, all of that seems massive. All of that uncertainty seems really daunting. And so what we've decided is to put a blindfold on because, and this is the beautiful part, because at least I know it's dark.
That's unreal. That's fucking hilarious. Holy fuck. Like, oh, it's pretty and all, but I don't know. Where does it end? Like, I want to be certain about something. Let me close. Okay, it's dark now. At least I know that. Oh, that's brutal. That is so brutal, because like, how fucking real that is. God damn.
That's great. And you gotta laugh.
Man.
And you gotta laugh because, again, in eternity, there's no wrong thing to do. You can do that. But when you recognize it, when you really look at it for what it is, and you have a good laugh at it, you think to yourself, I should just take this fucking thing off. I just look around. And that's all this is us looking around. And so this has been a great show. Thank you to everyone who could call in, everyone who is in the comment section, everybody who supports the podcast, and everybody who's making this community everything that it is. We really appreciate it, obviously, because we're you and you appreciate it. So there's some reciprocity in the appreciation. And this has just been a blast. We're going to be continuing on Patreon in about 15 minutes. I'm going to pass it over to Andrew, but thanks, man.
Absolutely. I'm glad my Wi-Fi seemed to be doing a little better on my hotspot. Always good to see. Never know in these fucking places. Wow, that's going to turn out. But this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate everyone for calling in, everyone who tuned into Twitch. Yeah, and I'm excited to continue this on Patreon.